What's up guys, Rogue9 here, and today I want to revisit the loadout meta for Alibi. Most of you will know by now that the Italian ACS12 full auto shotgun has been reworked to fire 12 gauge slugs instead of buckshot in Operation Steel Wave, and so the question we now need to answer is whether or not there is any point to bringing this gun on Alibi. We've already checked how the reworked ACS12 fares on Maestro, and unsurprisingly the Alda is still an absolute beast of a gun that will always be the better choice, but for Alibi and her Mx4 Storm, things might not be as clear-cut. Let's go and take a look. The initial stat overview instantly looks a lot more balanced than last time, but while the single shot damage for the ACS looks pretty good compared to the Mx4, the fire rate and DPS are still atrocious, and it will be questionable whether the stats will add up to making the ACS12 a viable choice. As always, we will dive into the combat capabilities first, and the pretty significant damage advantage of the slug shotgun means that it will require a lot less shots to take down an opponent, no matter what type of armor they're wearing or where you hit them. This not only goes for close range, as the wonderfully crafted tables on the left show us, but of course also for long range, and another detail worth highlighting here is that the damage drop-off for the ACS is much shallower than for the Mx4, and only bottoms out at 35 meters instead of 28 meters. When it comes to shots to kill, the ACS was always going to be the winner here, but once we factor in the fire rate, the fact is that the Mx4 will have the shorter takedown time in almost all circumstances. Only against medium-armored attackers at short range, when all shots land on the torso, will the shotgun have a quicker time to kill. Anything apart from that and the ACS will have a significant disadvantage, especially at longer ranges, where the time to kill will be on average almost half a second longer. That's huge, but the ACS does have some other factors that we need to consider before writing it off completely. With the new penetration system introduced during Operation Shifting Tides, the slug shotguns were given full penetration capabilities, i.e. they can shoot through a number of opponents and still hit targets in behind. Whereas the Mx4 only has simple limb penetration, which only means that you can still hit headshots even after the bullet hits the arm of the same character first. As a shotgun, the ACS also has the capability of opening hatches with a single shot, as well as taking out the wooden studs in breachable walls. Fair enough, compared to almost all other shotguns in Rainbow Six Siege, the breaching capabilities of the ACS12 are about as useful as a paper parachute. Not completely useless, but probably not enough to do you much good either. And as much as the full penetration capabilities might sound really useful, the number of times that you'll get your opponents to line up nicely for you in any given season is probably also going to be, let's say, limited. This video is brought to you by Ridge Wallet, the makers of, you guessed it, high-tech slimline wallets. I've been using the aluminium version for well over a year now, and I've been really happy with it, but they recently also sent me the titanium one to check out, and I have to say this one is even cooler. If you're looking to trade out your bulky old wallet, check out the Ridge wallet by going to ridge.com/rogue9, that's ridge.com/rogue9, and if you use the code rogue9 at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount and free worldwide shipping and returns. For a shotgun, the ACS has an amazing capacity, but compared to an SMG, it's still nothing special, so the simple fact is that if you want to make taking down enemies as efficient as possible, the Mx4 should still be your go-to choice. Sure, once we start looking at the handling of the two guns, things initially look quite good for the ACS. You will get faster reload times out of the shotgun, not sure how that makes sense when you're trying to juggle gigantic 30-shot 12-gauge rotary magazines compared to simple Beretta SMG mags, but there it is. From empty, the ACS will be almost half a second quicker to reload, and the tactical reload offers literally twice the time saving, but that one benefit is then immediately undercut by these slower aim down sight times with or without the angled grip, where the ACS will be a full third slower than the Mx4. Hipfire stats for slug shotguns are really weird because they're always the same, no matter what stance your character is in. I'm guessing this is just a leftover artifact from being part of the shotgun class. As you can see here, the hipfire cone for the slug gun stays the same, while the Mx4 becomes increasingly smaller as we go from standing through kneeling to prone. When jogging, the ACS is again surprisingly good for such a large clunky weapon, and it's actually a lot better than the far smaller and lighter Mx4. Until you start shooting, which will cause the ACS spread to bloom out, let's say, quite considerably. A bit like how gravity causes this crocodile to spread out quite considerably. Probably the greatest strength of the ACS is its controllability, and let's also take this opportunity to talk about the optimal attachments for each gun. Checking the in-game recoil stats for both guns, we have the default patterns first. Then for the ACS is the gun with the vertical grip attached, since this is the only recoil mitigating option we get. And for the Mx4, it's first the combo of the angled grip and muzzle brake, and then vertical grip and flash hider, and I'll explain my thoughts on those combos shortly. Easy stuff first though, and when it comes to the setup of the ACS, I would definitely recommend the angled grip over the vertical, because the gun's vertical recoil is so mild that when I personally attached the vertical grip during my trials, I actually ended up overcompensating and pulling the point of aim down. Of course, there is always the caveat that I use a mouse and keyboard and things are a little different with the controller, but all in all, if you can manage any of the other guns in the game, you can also manage the ACS with the angled grip. Getting that 40% aim down sight time reduction is really worth it in this case. The Mx4 also has a relatively manageable recoil overall, but it does also have a tendency to kick out to the left suddenly at random about midway through a long burst. There's no attachment that is able to eliminate this issue, so it's best to limit your burst to half a mag or so, and with that in mind, I have two suggested setups for the gun. The angled grip is still incredibly useful on this gun, and is best paired with the muzzle brake in order to minimize the pretty hefty first shot recoil. Do keep in mind though that this will mean a little more random recoil throughout the burst and a lot more vertical recoil. The alternative option is to bite the bullet when it comes to ADS time, after all 300 milliseconds is pretty good, and go for the vertical grip instead, which then also allows us to use the flash hider since the nasty first shot recoil is nowhere near as bad anymore. This attachment combo provides the best all-round recoil reduction for longer bursts while still keeping the first shot recoil to a manageable level. The Mx4 also has the option of attaching the extended barrel, which will raise the gun's long-range damage from 19 points to 23 points per shot. This will give you exactly one less shot to kill against all armor types for chest strikes, and 2 shots less for limb strikes at the cost of default recoil. Now, that does sound pretty good, right? But let's not forget that you only get the full benefits of this attachment from 28 meters and onwards, and with the higher recoil that you will face, it is doubtful whether or not you will even be able to hit all of your shots at that range. Plus, there are only very few areas on a handful of maps where you can even get anywhere near that kind of range. You can make up your own opinion on this, but I'm sticking with my conclusion that I formed the very first time I analyzed the extended barrel, and that is that this attachment is still 99.4% completely pointless. Just like I've been telling everyone for literally the last 3.5 years. The suppressor is in theory also an option for Alibi's SMG, but you will be needing an extra chest shot to down or kill against level 1 and 3 armors at close range, and level 2 and 3 armors at long range. Not ideal for a gun that already needs at least 4 to 7 chest shots and 6 to 12 limb shots depending on range. The choice is yours, but I'll give it a pass, thanks. So, after all of that, where do we end up? Sadly, even on Alibi, the only things that the ACS12 has going for it are the high single shot damage, whoop-de-doo, faster reload speed, okay, and decent vertical recoil control. When it comes to using her primary guns as actual weapons, the ACS's purposefully okay but not great balancing just cannot keep up with the far more powerful SMG, and for me personally, the lackluster breaching capability and ability to hit multiple targets with a single shot are just not enough to make this gun worth a pick. After having examined both Maestro and Alibi with this brand new reworked slug gun, I think the best conclusion is that we have ended up with a situation that is similar to Dockerby and Vigil's. Yes, the shotgun can do some work, and it has a few interesting unique features, but it will simply never be able to stand up to the alternative options available to each character. The fire rate of the real-life AA12 is only 300 RPM, so buffing the ACS in that way is kind of off the table, and there is no way that Ubisoft can increase the damage anymore. The gun is already a two-shot weapon at close range. That means that we're probably stuck here with two characters that each have one decent primary and one meme cannon. And that's fine really. Not every character needs to have an actual choice in primaries. Sure, it would be nice to have, but in fairness, it's not necessary. But having said all that, if the ACS12 is always going to be a mediocre meme gun, then maybe, just maybe, the devs should go all in on that concept. Seriously though, I think an ACOG on this gun would be no more harmful than on the TCSG. Actually, the limited fire rate would definitely make it less harmful. So yeah, go on Ubisoft, hashtag ACS ACOG, please and thank you. And that's it. Have you been using the ACS at all since its rework? What are your thoughts on the gun getting an ACOG? Leave your comments below. And with that, many thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next episode.